I'm Carol from Sunbury, Ohio.
I'm a Republican, but I don't care who does the job as long as the job gets done. That's why I like Sherrod Brown. He stood up to both parties on China and worked with Republicans to fight fentanyl because Sherrod fights for Ohio. That's leadership.
Paid for by friends of Sherrod Brown.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like, you know, to check you have the tickets in your wallet first before you drive 2 hours to the big game. Seriously, you had one job. Now the closest you'll get to the 50-yard line is parking lot D. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
It's football season, and you can now get almost anything you need for game day delivered with Uber Eats. What do we mean by almost? Well, you can't get a running back delivered, but you can get baby back ribs delivered. A strong defense? No. A strong deodorant? Yes. A six-pack of abs? Nope. Six-pack of beer? Yes. Get almost anything for game day delivered with Uber Eats, official on-demand food delivery partner of the NFL. Order now. Alcohol 21 plus and in select cities. Product availability varies by region. See app for details.
Welcome to the Two-Footed Podcast, your daily dive into the biggest stories and talking points from the world of football, with a particular focus on the Premier League. Before we get started, a quick shout out to our presenting sponsor, Liberty Shield. Liberty Shield is a VPN provider, and one of the many benefits of their service is that you can change your IP address to unlock geo-restricted content. And for Premier League fans like us, that means you can catch all the action no matter where you are. So if you use their UK VPN, that means you get all live matches on Sky Sports, TNT Sport, Amazon Prime, and the highlights with Match of the Day on BBC iPlayer. Furthermore, you can switch your location to the USA to access all those matches you may otherwise miss using American streaming services like Peacock and USA Network. If you sign up now, you can get 25% off by using the code EPL25OFF. That's EPL25 off at checkout for 25% off. That's whether you choose their VPN router or the software app for your favorite devices. Liberty Shield have got you covered. Oh, and don't forget, after today's episode, be sure to check out our shorter bite-sized pod, the Two-Footed Extra. That will keep you up to speed with all the latest news and gossip. And be sure to check out the other shows that EPL Index offers. Today was hugely enjoyable, a tad predictable, previewing every Premier League round with a different guest each week, where he really does put them through the ringer. You come off that show, I've guested on that show, you come off it, and you feel like you've been interrogated. It's a really good listen, though. There's also our new show, our roundup show. It's called The Final Whistle. It's hosted by Nina Kauser and Ben Poscod, and they summarise all the matches and the big talking points. It comes out every Sunday evening, so make sure you're listening. Now, let's dive in to today's biggest stories. What's good, boys and girls? Two-Footed Podcast. Today is Monday. It is October 7th. Hope you're all well and had a pleasant weekend. Weather update. Midland. Not good, not bad. It's just somewhere in the middle. It's fine. It'll do. You know what doesn't do, though, is another international break. We're 7 games into the Premier League season and facing a second international break for reasons nobody can fully understand. Nobody wants to watch international football. Nobody wants to watch it. Most of it is absolute garbage. But here we are in early October having a second international break in a season which only began in the latter part of mid-August. But here we are. Utter nonsense. Woke nonsense, as Guy Drinkle would call it. We had ourselves 10 games over the weekend. Liverpool beat Crystal Palace 1-0 at Selhurst Park to begin the games. That was the 12:30 on Saturday. A good win for Liverpool, keeping up their good start to the season. Diogo Jota with the only goal of the game. Palace had some tears after the game over a what they felt was a penalty claim. It was in no way a penalty claim. And if you look at the referee's performance, it's very clear he massively favoured Crystal Palace in that one. More on that on Anfield Index's Daily Red if you want to dig in there. Let's move on, though, to the other Premier League games, because quite a lot took place. And there was, I think, legitimate controversy and concern to be felt over certain Premier League games this weekend. I think certain teams should be very worried about what we saw from them. So, Arsenal 3, Southampton 1. Nothing to really take away from this game, other than Arsenal's lack of creativity, which should be fixed when Martin Odegaard returns from his injury. They went 1-0 down through a Cameron Archer goal. It's pretty poor defending from Saliba. It's a good finish from Archer. Arsenal equalised 3 minutes later. It's just very sloppy from Flynn Downs. You've just gotten the lead. You've defended really well. And here you are giving away a sloppy pass in your own half for absolutely no reason. Really, really poor. But Kai Havertz gets the ball, and it's a really good goal from Kai Havertz. Martinelli made it 2 on 68. It is just an absolute peach of a cross from Bukayo Saka. It's the simplest finish Martinelli will ever get in his life. And then Saka himself makes it 3 on 88. Yet more horrible defending by Southampton. Nothing to take from this game. We expected Arsenal to win comfortably. It wasn't as comfortable as it probably should have been, but they won comfortably in the end. For Southampton, learn your lessons. Like, it is time to learn your lessons. Stop trying to play out from the back when you don't have the players to play out from the back. Quite simply. You lined up with a 5-man defence. Sugawara at right back looks like he's about to soil himself every time he's get pressed. Manning started at left wing back. Was barely involved in the game. Might as well have stayed home. Kyle Walker-Peters started as one of your centre-backs, which is just a baffling decision. Bednarik is not a good passer of the ball, and Howard Bellis I really like, but he's not a playmaking or a passing centre-back. That's not his game. Just not his game at all. I don't understand why Stewart is starting. I really don't. I will say, though, in Dibbling and Fernandez, they have 2 potential stars in the making. But other than that, there's nothing to take from their performance. Brentford 5, Wolves 3. So this was one of the games where I thought Wolves might get something in this run. And the bottom line of it is, if you score 3 goals in a Premier League game, you should win that game 100 times out of 100. If you score 3 goals in any game of football, you should never be walking away with anything other than a win. If you walk away with a point, you should be disappointed. To walk away with a defeat, and a defeat by 2 clear goals, is just appalling. So Brentford continue their trend of scoring within the first, this was 2 minutes. Normally it's 1 minute. This was in the second minute. Nathan Collins, I'm not sure why he's in the Wolves penalty area, but he is, and it's a really good finish. On 4 minutes, Matthias Cunha equalises for Wolves. Then Nathan Collins wins a penalty. On 20 minutes, Mbeumo steps up and scores. But 6 minutes later, we're level again, and it's Jurgen Strand Larsen with a really nice flick finish. So, you've gone behind, you've come back real quick. You've gone behind again, you've come back real quick. You would think, you would think that something or somebody within the Wolves setup would make the players think, let's get tight here. Let's kill this game for about 10 minutes. Let's just flatline it. See ourselves through till you scored on 26, after celebrations, probably 27. Let's get to 37, maybe 40, without doing anything stupid. 28 minutes. Brentford are ahead again. 1 minute after kickoff, Brentford are ahead again. And Norgaard's getting a free shot. Norgaard, the defensive midfielder, is getting a free shot inside the Wolves penalty area. And then 2 minutes into stoppage time, at the end of the first half, it's 4-2. And at that point, you have to just be looking at Wolves and thinking, what on earth are you doing? Like, what are you doing here? How are you this bad defensively? Like, Wolves had more of the ball in this game. But yet it felt like every time Brentford got the ball, they'd had a chance. They had 19 shots in the game, of 44% of the ball. 19 shots, 12 of them on target. 5 of them went in. Fabio Carvalho made it 5-2 in the 90th minute. A tap-in after your defence was all at sea again. On 93 minutes, Rayan Aït-Nouri pulls one back, put a little bit of respectability on the scoreline. But ultimately, Wolves were just a shambles. An absolute shambles. And while Sam Johnston concedes 5 here, he's the sole reason they didn't concede 8 or 9. Against Brentford. Against the Brentford team, who are playing Shade up front, who's a winger and doesn't score many goals. With Lewis Potter on the wing, who doesn't score many goals. And Damsgaard is a 10, who doesn't score many goals. They've got one player in their attacking 4 who's a consistent goal threat. They've got centre-backs playing at full-back, including a right-footed centre-back being forced to play at left-back, which will tell you where they are squad-wise. And they still tore you apart. This was an abysmal coaching performance by Gary O'Neill. Absolutely abysmal. And the powers that be at Wolves have got to be sitting down today and having a very, very in-depth, serious conversation about whether they can afford to carry on with Gary O'Neill. Because we're now 7 games into the season, you've taken 1 point, the same as Southampton, but you've conceded 21 goals. 21 goals. You're averaging 3 goals conceded every single game. Six more than anyone else in the division. And there's a lot of teams in this division who cannot defend. 6 more than anybody. That's atrocious. So if we go back and now take in the last 12 games of last season, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Right. 3-0 loss away to Wolves. Sorry, to Newcastle. A 2-1 win at home to Fulham. So there's 3 points. You've scored 2 and conceded 4. A 2-0 loss away to Villa. They conceded 6. A 1-1 draw with Burnley. So you're now up to 4 points, 3 goals scored, 7 conceded. A 2-1 defeat at home to West Ham. A 2-2 draw away to Nottingham Forest. You're now up to 5 points. With 6 goals scored and 11 conceded. A 2-0 loss at home to Arsenal. A 1-0 loss at home to Bournemouth. So we're at 14 goals conceded. You beat Luton 2-1. Congrats. You're up to 8 points. 8 goals scored, 15 conceded. Then you lose 5-1 to Manchester City. 3-1 to Crystal Palace. And 2-0 to Liverpool. So through those 12 games, you took 8 points, scored 10, and conceded 25. And then if we add on what you've done thus far this season, you've taken 9 points, you've scored 19 goals, and you've conceded 46 goals in your last 19 games, which is atrocious. It's about 2.5 goals conceded every game while scoring 1 per game. So if we just extrapolate that over a 38-game season, which is very easily done just by multiplying by 2, you have taken, from a season sample size, it would be 18 points, which is relegation every single season since the history of time. You've scored 38 goals, 1 a game. Congratulations on that. And you've conceded 92 goals, which is historically atrocious. That's the pace they're on. This is not just this season, given time. Like, there is mitigating factors in the players that they've sold and in terms of the fact that he hasn't been back all that well. He has had to deal with some injuries, but every club has to deal with injuries. Not every manager gets backing properly, and most clubs have financial issues. Most clubs, including a lot of the big ones. And he is on pace to get them relegated by February. They need to have a very, very deep think about whether or not they can carry on with Gary O'Neill. Because that is an atrocious run of form over their last 19 games. It is really, really poor. And there's very little that you can make excuses for. Because, as I say, everybody's dealing with injuries. Yes, you have a centre-back out. Brentford are missing their striker, their second-best attacker in Vissa after Mbomo, and both fullbacks, among other things. There's just no excuse that you can find for it. Like, if we even look at last season, like, if we take the 31 games after the first 7 of last season and just do 38 that way, like, in the first 7 games last year, they took 7 points. Then they got beaten 4 times, but they did win 2 and draw 1. That's 39 from the 29 last season and 1. It's a 40-point run over 38 games. Yes, that keeps you in the division, but not by a whole lot in a normal season. And your form is getting increasingly worse. It really is getting increasingly worse. And again, you take a look at their fixtures and what they've got coming up, and it really doesn't look promising. They play City home next, then they go to Brighton. Anyone fancy them to take anything from those games? Because I don't. Then you get Palace at home. Maybe you beat them. Then it does get a bit easier. Southampton home, Fulham away, Bournemouth home, Everton away, West Ham away, Ipswich home, Leicester away. That's not a bad run. But do you want to entrust that in Gary O'Neill? I don't know. I really don't. But even if you do, you still need, as a matter of due diligence, to have a look around and see what the alternatives are. Brentford can be absolutely chuffed with that win. It's really, really good. City 3, Fulham 2. City go behind. Andreas Pereira. Assist of the season is over. It's Raul Jimenez. Mark it down. An unbelievable assist. Kovacic scores for City. Kovacic scores again for City. Doku makes it 3. And then Rodrigo Muniz pulls back a late consolation. And that sounds like, City controlled the game. And despite going behind, they just went on and won it comfortably. But that's not what happened. Adama Traore missed 3 massive chances in this game. 3. Absolutely massive chances in this game. City looked very vulnerable defensively. Very, very vulnerable to pace and movement. And I guarantee you Pep came away from that game fuming. West Ham 4, Ipswich 1. The story of this game is Ipswich and just suicidal football. Absolutely suicidal football. Mikel Antonio puts West Ham 1 up. It's a good goal. Liam Delap equalises. Really good goal. Really nice finish. Areola maybe could have done better, but I don't think he's expecting the shot so early. From there, it is just about Ipswich just having their heads firmly up their own asses. They gift not 1, but 2 massive chances to West Ham, who failed to take either of them. Kudus missed one. I think Souček missed the other. Then Kudus scores, and again, it's a result of poor defending. And you think, right, you've made 3 big errors here. Surely now, after 3 monumental errors, one of which you've been punished for, you'll stop. You'll be a bit more considered in your actions with the ball. Maybe you'll be a little bit more rudimentary with things. Maybe just clear the ball when what's needed is clearing the ball. And no, not at all. Given away cheaply, Bowen picks it up, and he just breezes through, and nobody even tries to make a tackle. It's a good goal by Bowen, but nobody makes a tackle. He carries the ball about 20 yards, having been gifted it. Under no pressure, by the way. And then Paqueta scores shortly after, and that's game over. But this was all about Ipswich. And I would imagine Kieran McKenna was... Anger, I don't think, would even begin to describe how I think you'd feel if you watched your team make those types of errors. Like, I understand that managers tell players to play out from the back and these type of things, but, like, surely to God, players can engage their own decision-making ability. And if you're the goalkeeper, for example, and one of your players is stood in your own box, and you have the ball at your feet, and that player is 15 yards away, but has not 1, but 2 opposition players literally standing behind him. The only way they would have been closer is if one of them got in his jersey and the other one got in his shorts. And you decide, I'm going to play the ball to him. There are just moments when the old saying, when in doubt, root it out, comes to mind. And that's one of them. It's a good and much needed win for West Ham, but I think McKenna will be fuming. I genuinely think he'll be fuming. Right, we'll go to break, we'll come back, We'll go through the other 5 games. We'll go to break again, and then we'll do some winners and losers. I'll see you after this.
It's football season, and you can now get almost anything you need for game day delivered with Uber Eats. What do we mean by almost? Well, you can't get a running back delivered, but you can get baby back ribs delivered. A strong defense? No. A strong deodorant? Yes. A 6-pack of abs? Nope. 6-pack of beer? Yes. Get almost anything for game day delivered with Uber Eats, official on-demand food delivery partner of the NFL. Order now. Alcohol 21 plus and in select cities. Product availability varies by region. See app for details.
Kamala Harris was raised by a working mother who instilled in her a passion for justice, equality, and standing up for your community. That's why as district attorney, she pioneered a program to give nonviolent drug offenders a second chance. And as president, Kamala Harris will continue fighting for us. Because rents, groceries, and utility bills are still too high. Harris's plan to fix it? Build more homes to lower prices and make the wealthy and billionaires pay their fair share in taxes. As president, Kamala Harris will always have our backs.
I'm Kamala Harris, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Harris for president.
Right, welcome back. So, Leicester City 1, Bournemouth 2. This is the proverbial game of two halves. Leicester had by far the best chances first half, and Bournemouth dominated the second half. Facundo Buenanote scores on 16 minutes. He'd already had one sighter. This time he picks the ball up and he drives really well at the heart of the Bournemouth defence. And for reasons I don't fully understand, nobody tries to make a challenge. Now, I really don't like the fact that Senesi has come back in for Huijsen. I think the Huijsen-Zabani pairing is the one to go with and work with. But Senesi's just too back-footed for me. He's too reactionary. He's too much of a sweeper, in my opinion. I think you need someone that's a bit more proactive and progressive there. And by progressive, I don't mean in terms of passing. I mean in terms of stepping the line up and playing that little bit higher and being a bit more aggressive and compressing the space between defensive line and midfield, because that's the space that Leicester were able to exploit over and over and over again. Buenanote getting on the ball in central pockets, driving in off the wing, picking it up and having nobody near him and gaining 5, 7, 9 yards before anybody even came to try and make a tackle on him. And he did that over and over again in the first half. He scores the first, he almost created another for Vardy, an uncharacteristically poor finish for Vardy. Second half, it's all Bournemouth. And they did have the ball in the net, but it was ruled out for offside. It's a Lewis Cook free kick. I don't think Evan Nielsen actually gets a touch on it, but he is in an offside position. He does jump, and the ball does just glide over the top of his head. And it is the correct decision to rule it out for offside because the goalkeeper, Hermansen, he can't react. He can't try and save the ball until it's past Evan Nielsen, at which point it's too late for him. If Evan Nielsen does nothing and it goes in, it's absolutely a goal. If he doesn't jump, I think it's a goal. Hermansen might save it because he would have had the time to take an extra step. He could have gone earlier. So maybe he does save it. It's a strong possibility that he does. But if he doesn't, it's given as a goal. But the Evan Nielsen run and jump, the jump is the issue, is why that goal was disallowed. Credit to Bournemouth, they kept going and trying to find an equaliser, and they got aggressive with their subs. They brought on Brooks and Scott and Owatara and Sinisterra and Unal. But they couldn't find a way to break down Leicester's defence, and that's a bit of an indictment on them. I'd really like to see Alex Scott starting at the 10. Personally, I think that's something that Bournemouth should be looking at doing. I think one of Sinisterra and Owatara would be a better option than Tavernier, who's a good player, but at this level, I think he's a squad player. I think Semenyo and Evan Nielsen, seeing a little bit of link up between the two of those, I'd like to see them develop that further and then work that left winger in as well. I think Sinisterra is the one that could add, a goal threat. Owatara can add the outlet, though, and maybe that's more valuable. And then I think Scott, because of his passing, his dribbling ability, could be ideal in the number 10. Now, Kluivert is playing well, don't get me wrong. Maybe he's the one that should shift out left and not start Ouattara. So at least you have the right footer and the left footed attacking left back. But I'd really like to see what they would look like with Semenyo, Scott and Ouattara behind Evan Nielsen, with a midfield two of Cook or Christie and Tyler Adams when he's back. And then at the back, I don't know why Smith is starting. He's not good. He's never been good enough in the Premier League. Zabarny and Huijsen should be starting, and Kirkes is an obvious one. But I just don't understand. Reho's a lot better than Smith. Stop doing this. Like, managers get this thing where they feel the need to have certain veterans in their team who just can't play at this level anymore. We've seen it for years. We saw it at Liverpool with Milner and Henderson, before that with Lallana. We saw it at Brighton with Lallana. We see it at Brighton with Dunk. You know, there's just... And we see it at many other clubs, but you just see these players and they're just not good enough for the division. You know, Steve Cook was another one when he was at Bournemouth, and then when he went to Forest. Not good enough for the Premier League. Very good in the Championship, absolutely fine, well done. You know, there's no taking away from that, but you're not good enough in the Premier League, and yet the manager's continually throwing you out there, and then you've just got assholes like me saying you're not good enough. It's not your fault, it's the manager's fault. And in this case, it's not Smith's fault. He's not good enough. It's not Joel Ward's fault or Nathaniel Klein's fault or Lewis Dunk's fault that at this point in their careers, and in some cases, no point in their careers, but at this point in your career, you're not good enough to play in this league. And it's hurting the team. Let's move on then. Everton 0, Newcastle 0, a very dull game in which Anthony Gordon missed 3 big chances, which was wonderful to see, including a penalty, which is one of the worst penalties you'll see. Although not even, to be fair, not even one of the worst penalties I saw this weekend. If you haven't seen the Girona Athletic Bilbao game, go watch the highlights. Paulo Gazzaniga, who you'll remember as a fairly bang average backup goalkeeper in the Premier League, saved 3 penalties, all of which were dreadful. All of which they're the worst penalties you'll ever see. David De Gea saved 2 penalties this weekend for Fiorentina. I haven't actually watched that yet, but this is a really poor penalty from Gordon. No conviction, and it looked all full of himself. I think then once he put the ball on the spot, his arse might have gone, but he missed that. He missed a header that I think tried to head back across goal and made a mess of. And then he missed a good chance and he was stuck through a one-on-one at the angle and blazed it over the bar. Everton set out for a draw. Everton got a draw. They had a goal disallowed and they had a shout for a penalty, but the referee made the right call. Dan Burn defended it well. The goal that was disallowed was rightly disallowed. Doucouré went too early. Everton will be thrilled at the point. I don't think Newcastle will. The highlight of the game, though, is Everton trolling Anthony Gordon afterwards. He tweeted something about not the result he wanted, and they quote tweeted it with the video of him missing the penalty, at which point he's blocked them on Twitter, which is just magnificent from all sides. And Jamie Carragher wading in, saying that it was small time and all this. Like, shut up. Nobody cares what you have to say on this. You're not involved. Everton fans are thrilled by how their club have handled this. Everton fans are rightly furious with Anthony Gordon still over how he forced his way out of the club, his refusal to train, his refusal to play, the things he said about the club, the way he acted. And then when he came back with Newcastle, coming on late as a sub in a game Newcastle are comfortably winning, and then antagonising the fans, making funny faces to the cameras. Like, have yourself a bit of decorum and class, and the club will respond in kind. You've shown no decorum, no class, and the club are right to respond the way they did. Aston Villa 0, Manchester United 0, another dull game. The best chance of the game, I thought, fell to Morgan Rogers in the first half. Bruno Fernandes near broke the crossbar in the second half. Marcus Rashford very lucky not to be sent off. had already been booked and threw a leg out, tripped the player. Should definitely have been a second yellow. He was taken off, I'd imagine, for his own protection after that. Villa will be disappointed with this result. Villa will be disappointed. United will be thrilled, and by United, I mean Ten Hag, because it probably keeps them in the job for a little while longer. Chelsea won, Nottingham Forest won. Chris Wood on 49 minutes. Noni Mudeki equalises. James Ward-Prowse gets sent off for 2 yellows. I think the game sort of descended into this weird basketball mentality where neither side had much reason to defend and just kept launching attack after attack. And both keepers ended up making tremendous saves. And these are 2 keepers I don't really rate. Matt Sells made, I thought, 3 really good saves in the game. The pick of them being the one from Nkunku, but 3 really good saves. And I think Sanchez probably made about the same. So credit to both goalkeepers. They're the reason it ended 1-1. Could easily have been 3-3, 4-4. Either team could have won. I think if Forest had won, you'd be asking questions about Chelsea just on the fact that Forest had 10 men for the last 12 minutes in stoppage time. But Chelsea were not impressive here. And that's the type of performance that I think we'll see through the season still. Like, they're still learning how to play this way. They're still wide open defensively. There's a lack of cohesion in the team. The manager's not getting his message onto the pitch well in-game. Like, they come out with a very clear idea, but when it stumbles or it's not quite clicking for them, that's when the manager has to improve. He's not getting his message on. He's not making the right in-game adjustments to factor for what the opposition are doing. It's very much, this is what we're going to do, and plan B is more of this. And the issue with that is teams start to figure it out, and Forest looked like they'd figured quite a bit of it out at the weekend. And then we have our final game. Brighton 3, Tottenham 2. Tottenham. What on earth? Brennan Johnson puts them 1 up on 23 minutes. Lovely run, lovely finish off a Solanke through ball. Maddison makes it 2 on 37. Verbruggen should do better to keep it out. It should have been, probably should have been 3 by half time. Spurs were dominant. Spurs were in control. They probably should have scored before Johnson scores. You also got Timo Werner out there just missing chances galore. Second half starts, and you just think for Spurs, you're 2-0 up here. You're away from home. Make sure you manage the first 10 minutes of the second half. Not even 3 minutes of the last. And Yankuba Minta makes it 2-1. It's just woeful defending from Udogie. 58 minutes. It's Jorginho Rutter. It's lovely play. It's a lovely bit of play by Brighton. Lovely sweeping move. Carves Spurs open, and it's a really good finish by Rutter. And then on 66, I don't understand. Like, you've just conceded 2. You've lost your lead. The least you can get out of here with now is a point. You cannot leave with nothing. This is the Denzel Washington meme. You're leaving with something. You've got to leave with something. You've gone 2-0 up away from home. And they just fall asleep. It's a throw-in, and it's like they all looked at each other and thought, oh, we could take a bit of a breather now. Brighton throw the ball in. It finds its way to Rutter. He does a turn in the box. All of a sudden, he's got a bit of space. One defender ambles across to try and close him down. Ball takes a deflection, loops across, and there's Danny Welbeck standing, but nobody near him. Like, I get that people like to take shots at Ange because he's Australian. It's a bit different. He speaks a little bit different. He's got a different demeanour. He's quite straightforward and quite blunt with how he speaks and what he says. And his style of football is quite lopsided. There's no doubt. But it's not the manager's fault when a player makes a mistake like a doggy makes on the first goal. And it's not the manager's fault when the entire team falls asleep in the 66th minute. It just isn't. The second Brighton goal you can put down to maybe a flaw in the system, a flaw in the team selection, more to the point. And I mentioned this a few weeks ago, and I have to bring it up again. You cannot play Kulusevski, Bentancur, and James Maddison as a midfield in the Premier League. You just can't do it. You just can't when you have fullbacks like Pedro Porro and Destiny Adoiji who are glorified wingers. Like, they're naturally attacking players. They don't have defensive mindsets. And you're playing a wing/10, a 10, and Bentancur, who's not a defensive midfielder and isn't exactly the most mobile player in the world. You cannot play that midfield. There's no balance at all. Like, if you wanted to play that midfield, you'd have to change both fullbacks. And you'd have to play fullbacks like Arsenal play fullbacks. You could get away with Bentancur and one of them if you changed one fullback and brought Sarr into midfield. You could maybe get away with Maddison and Kulusevski with Bissouma and one defensive fullback. Maybe. But this is a nonsense midfield. It's an absolute nonsense midfield with no balance and no defensive presence at all. You can afford one of them, Maddison and Kulusevski, not both. Unless one of them is playing on the wing, you cannot afford to have both of them in your team. You just can't. And right now, as we look at this Spurs team, Brennan Johnson has to start. He's scoring every game. Solanke has to start as the 9. Son will come back in for Werner. God knows why Timo Werner's playing. And then it's Maddison or Kulusevski with Bissouma, and then pick your other one. If you want Bentancur, fair enough. It really should be Sarr. But this is going to get him sacked. This is going to get him sacked. Just really, really poor. And then I struggled with the subs as well. I struggled with why he brought on more. Like, I understand he's immensely gifted. What did you think he was going to do in that scenario? Like, what did you feel like he was going to do? The better move would have been to bring on Archie Gray or Bergvall and push Kulusevski into the front three. Just a very poorly coached second half by Ange, but we do have to take into account 2 of the goals are just down to the players, not so much the manager. Great win for Brighton, though. Like, massive, massive win to come from behind. When the first half went about as badly as it possibly could, Webster, who I don't know why he was starting, but Webster gets hurt early, so you've got to make a change. Then at half time, you've got to take Kadioglu off because he's picked up a knock. I thought Hinchelwood was awful in the first half. Improved a little bit second half, but for me, he shouldn't be starting. I don't understand why he's starting. He's going to be a very good player. Right now, he's not. Right now, he's lacking in a lot of areas. Physically, in particular, he just gets bowled over too much. That 3 behind the striker, Minta, Ruder, and Matoma, really, really fun. Enciso and Gruda, I was impressed by both off the bench. Wiefer looked positive when he came off the bench as well. there's a lot of talent in that Brighton squad. Like, there really is so much to like about them. If they had a new right back and Veltman as the backup, 2 new centre backs with, I don't know, Van Hecke, Dunk, and Igor Julio as the 3 depth pieces, and Adam Webster sent far, far away, and a backup goalkeeper behind Verbruggen, that genuinely is comfortably a top half squad with the potential to be maybe even a top 4 squad. You've got 2 excellent left backs, a strong group in midfield that will just develop into a really, really good group of midfielders, and an outrageous amount of talent in your front 4. An absolutely outrageous amount of talent. I mean, Gruda and Enciso come on yesterday. Evan Ferguson is on the bench. João Pedro is injured. Solly March is not back yet. That's just silly. It's silly how much talent they have. And as for the midfield group, Malik Yalkoy, the kid they bought out of Sweden this summer, absolutely decimated Red Bull Salzburg over the weekend with a 5-0 win for Sturm Graz, and took the lunch money off Stefan Bajcetic and his mates in the Salzburg midfield. We may have another Kante on our hands. Great win. Great win. So, league table then, before we get to break. Liverpool top 18 points. Manchester City and Arsenal on 17. They're both unbeaten, of course. Chelsea have 14, as do Aston Villa. Brighton have 12, as do Newcastle. Fulham have 11. Tottenham, Nottingham Forest, and Brentford all have 10. West Ham, Bournemouth, and Manchester United have 8. Have 8, not 8. 8. Leicester have 6. Credit to them, first win. Everton have 5. Ipswich 4. Crystal Palace 3. Southampton and Wolves 1. Not looking too good for a bunch of teams down at the bottom. Big questions to be asked by a lot of these clubs now. We'll talk about some of them after the break. Right, welcome back. So, winners and losers. First winner is Liverpool. 12:30 away on a Saturday after a Wednesday night Champions League game is a short turnaround. Away in London is a long journey. Crystal Palace, I know the start of the season has not been good, but they are a good team with a lot of good players. Selhurst Park's a tough place to go. Though Liverpool have a good record there, I'm giving them first place. Not first place, but they're the first of the winners. Gonna go Brighton. To come from behind against a team as good as Spurs like that, regardless of the fact that a couple of defenders made errors, you forced those errors. Brighton never gave up. And in truth, if there was going to be another goal in that game, I felt like Brighton would be the ones to get it. So we'll go with them. And then I think Leicester getting your first win. I think that's hugely important. So we'll go with them. Now on to the more fun part, which is the losers. We're not going to get into Wolves again. But let's just say Wolves are definitely a loser this weekend. Ipswich. You've just got to be in here. There's an issue with managers in the game today who are too married to their own ideas and not willing to adapt, not willing to be a bit more pragmatic. Now, I had never considered Kieran McKenna to be one of those managers, but what I watched at the weekend was him becoming one of those managers. And my hope is it's only a one-off. My hope is that he will understand that at this level, you cannot afford to continually give away big chances through your own mistakes, because they will get punished. In the Championship and obviously in League One, they get punished a lot less. At the Premier League level, they get punished at a fairly high rate. And if you give away one goal, you need to change course and ensure that you don't give away. And I don't mean if a team scores against you. I mean if you give them a goal. If you wrap it up, pretty paper, fancy bow, maybe a bit of glitter on it. If you do that once in a game, you cannot do it again. Because to score one in the Premier League is hard enough. To score two is very, very giving away 2 goals. And not many teams score 3 regularly in the Premier League. So Ipswich have to learn from that game, that performance. When they went 2-1 down, there needed to be an alteration in what they were doing, and it didn't happen. It didn't come at half-time. And he needs to work on that over the next 2 weeks. Next up, we're going to have to put Spurs in here. Obvious reasons. You're 2-0 up and you lose 3-2. I mean, I don't make the rules, but the rules state you have to go in. Our third one is going to be Manchester United. Now, I know they didn't lose at the weekend, and to be fair, a draw away at Aston Villa is actually a good result. But I'm not talking necessarily about the team or the manager. I'm talking about the club as a whole here. Because you see, they've now gotten back-to-back draws against Porto and Aston Villa, both away from home, and both showed some character to get those results. And that makes it much tougher now to sack this manager, who isn't very good at all. The biggest reason I'm going to mark them down as a loser is that Manchester United's worst start in Premier League history through 7 games was 9 points. And that was accomplished twice. Once by Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and once by Erik ten Hag last season. This season, they have beaten that by only managing 8 points, making this United's worst start through 8 games. And it's just a reminder that no matter how much money you throw at a problem, it doesn't necessarily fix the problem, because sometimes the people involved are the problem. And in this case, the manager is the person who's most to blame. We have seen him now spend £600 million on players who are not very good. And at the weekend, on the bench, De Ligt, Xerxes, Casemiro, Anthony, Lisandro Martinez, Manuel Ugarte. All Erik ten Hag signings. All of them. At a sum total coming in at over £300 million. And when we look at the team that started in that game, he inherited Garnacho, he inherited Bruno, he inherited Eriksen, he inherited Kobe Mainoo. Did he inherit Eriksen, actually? No, I think he signed Eriksen, didn't he? So he inherited Garnacho, Bruno, Rashford, Mainoo, Delot, and Maguire. And Johnny Evans, the fact that he is one of United's best centre-backs is a damning indictment of a manager who spent so much money on centre-backs. But the fact of the matter is that he has spent $600 million. They do not have a centre-back pairing worthy of the name. Their best defender was at the club before he got there. Their best central midfielder is an academy kid. And the 3 best attackers, 2 of them he inherited, and 1 of them is an academy kid. And if you were to look at their next best attacker, it's Amad Diallo, who he also inherited. They have no number 9 who can get them consistent goals, despite having spent a whole fortune on 2 different number 9s. They've no midfield double pivot that works. I think Casemiro Ugarte could work. We haven't seen it yet. I don't think Mainu Ugarte will work, even though they're the 2 best that he has. I don't like that pairing on or off the ball because I don't think the skill sets sync at all. This is one of the worst squad building jobs you'll ever see. And the transfers are just hilarious. Obviously, it's too early to judge any of the signings from this summer, but let's just say De Ligt is trending in a very specific way. The signings from last summer, Mount, disaster. Onana, not very good. Højlund, he's very young, we'll see, but, you know. Beyinder, he signed, another one that was on the bench the weekend. Who knows if he's any good. And then the summer before, Malacia flop. Eriksen's been okay. Martinez, 50-odd million for that. Casemiro, good first season, disaster since. Anthony, unmitigated disaster. Even the loans. Weghorst was crap. Sabitzer was crap. Butland was crap. Dubravka, I think he played once. Just dross. Utter dross. This is a manager that has no idea what he's doing, and United are stuck with him unless they do an uncharacteristically brave thing. I'll be back later today. That's the end of this part of the show. I'll be back later today with the 2-footed extra. I almost lost sight of where I was for a second. I will be back later.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
It's a great time to save big on everything for your next project at Menards. Get free estimates fast on new energy-efficient windows from JELD-WEN. Choose from vinyl or wood windows and customize the perfect size and unique features for your home. Save big on all JELD-WEN windows today. View our entire selection of JELD-WEN windows on Menards.com. Plus the weekly flyer for other great deals happening now.
Save big money at Menards.